tonight's a celebration of the wonderful things on British television. You give us so much of that. What do you think distinguishes British television, though, from other TV around the world?
It's made in Britain. Well, you know, it's always been a benchmark for quality around the world. People have always said that. The BBC obviously is an international brand of quality. It's amazing the doors it opens. I've done a lot of documentaries, as you know, and I've spoken to some people who have not been interviewed for years, and as soon as they mention the BBC, they'll say yes. And that only comes from years and years of quality programming. And across the board, I think we are living through a bit of a renaissance at the moment. ITV drama is in fantastic health. There's some really interesting stuff on the digital channels. It's really very interesting time and very healthy. The fact that drama particularly has become so popular again. When it was sort of written off, it was like people just thought the only reality shows were going to thrive. And you've got event dramas like Broadchurch, where just sort of stop the traffic like they used to, people getting home early and because they can't wait. And then also they're downloading stuff in the same way because they just have to have it. So it's a very interesting time.
Of course, I mean, the last season of Sherlock was a fantastic benchmark for British television. What are you most proud of, though, looking back on the series now, Tom?
I think that we got away with not quite explaining how he faked his death, which that was a really huge challenge, because when we pushed him off the building, we obviously knew it was going to cause some interest. We had absolutely no idea it would become an international talking point for 2 years. So we knew we couldn't just sort of explain it, because it would just be a bit like, oh. So actually coming up with the idea of fake versions, and then sort of not quite saying how it was done, I'm very relieved, really, wasn't it?
I mean, talking about cliffhangers, obviously Andrew's cameo at the end of the series really has people talking again.
Yes, I know. It's like we planned it.
You obviously planned that. Do you plan to have more of Andrew in the next series to satisfy people's...
Well, you'll have to see, won't you? You'll have to wait and see. I mean, we have to explain it, of course we do. Because clearly he shot himself in the head, so I don't know. We've done it again, haven't we?
And what else are you working on at the moment now?
I'm filming Wolf Hall for the BBC, and then I'm doing Map and Lucia, doing those concurrently all through the summer. And then I don't know, actually. I don't know.
I mean, just bring it back to Sherlock very quickly. I mean, obviously, you're very responsible behind the camera, but on screen, you're a lot of fun as well, and you and Benedict have this wonderful tension. Can you talk a little bit about working with him and the kind of bickering, lovely rivalry that Mycroft and Sherlock have?
Well, it's so much fun to do, and the idea of Mycroft is actually cleverer than his brother. We've sort of worked on the idea that, of course, Sherlock really resents that, and luckily we never really have to explain it, because it's hard enough to make Sherlock clever, never mind Mycroft. But yeah, we have a great time, and we're very much looking forward to doing some more.
I'm curious, I mean, on the subject of Sherlock, obviously the series took him to a very dark place, and it was lighter at the start and then really crescendoed with that. I'm curious, do you think that's going to change people's perception of Sherlock when he comes back? He's always never quite been one of the angels, but now he really is a little bit further into the shadows. Yeah,
I mean, it was a deliberate thing. We started light because we knew where we were going was going to be very dark, and I think, you know, you've just got to keep reminding yourself that Sherlock Holmes is becoming more human, but he's never going to be quite one of us. And that's, to a greater or lesser extent, that's where we'll always find him. You know, even in the original stories, by the end, he and Dr. Watson are inseparable friends, but you'd never say he was like anybody else, you know. It's by tiny degrees, really.
You got a message for fans before you leave us?
Well, yes, thanks for watching. And Sherlock fans, we are moving closer to agreeing dates for the next series.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mark, before you go in, sir, you're obviously at the moment responsible for almost everything on British TV in one way or another.
It's the plan.
But obviously nominated for an adventure in space and time. Now, first off, how does that feel? I mean, obviously, you know, it's a film about the making of a TV show.
Well, it's a great honour, because it was a passion project of mine. I started working on it 13 years ago. I didn't work on it every single day, obviously, but I really love this story, and I've always loved Doctor Who, and I've always thought it would make a great TV film. obviously then everything came together for the 50th. It was the perfect time to tell the story. And it was a wonderful experience. But what I tried very hard to do, and what I'm most proud of, is that the response to it has been not just from Doctor Who fans at all, but from people who just really got it on a human level, as a story of a man who got the best job in the world and then had to let it go. And that's really what I wanted it to be, was a sort of, it's a bit like Death of a Salesman. It's actually a sort of tragic story. So the fact that it's about Doctor Who, it's not cosmetic at all, obviously, because it's my favourite show. But I very much wanted it to be more than just a show for Doctor Who fans.
That was actually one of the most interesting things, that it encompassed the whole of that first Doctor experience rather than just the creation. Was that always the way?
Yes, I had a very clear idea from the beginning that I would start on the day he changed into Patrick Troughton, use the TARDIS to go back in time, because that's a good idea, and then come back to it at the end and do the whole 3 years in between, but mostly concentrate on how it began, because actually one of the most difficult things about writing it was once it's a success, and it's actually quite hard to write about things that are going well, because all you can do is sort of show that people are having a great time. So inevitably, the beginning of the show was kind of where most of the drama was concentrated.
One of the other really interesting things for me, or I think, is perhaps the Verity Lambert angle. I don't know how many people were aware that Doctor Who was started by a female producer. Was that important to get in?
Enormously. First female drama producer of the BBC, 27. And then Waris Hussain, first director, 25, Indian, gay. Extraordinary group of people who sort of battled against the odds, and the fact that no one really thought it had any chance was sort of part of its charm. It's sort of, I think, still in its DNA that it was the little show that could. Now it's a worldwide blockbuster, but it's still essentially the same show, and that's what's fantastic about it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the last thing to shoot at TV Centre, weren't you?
The last drama, yeah, which was incredibly poignant. And actually we transformed the fifth floor back to how it was in 1963, literally as it was closing. And if you know your sci-fi, it was a bit like Sapphire and Steel. I thought, if we do this well enough, something might happen, and we'll find ourselves sucked back in time. And then we've got 24 hours to save President Kennedy. It's a good story. Let's do it.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, Mark. Good luck, sir.